You have all these things that you want to do, and when you find the time or make the time for these things, you don't know what to do, where to start, which project to prioritize, where you left off the last time you granted yourself all this time, whether or not monkeys can fly, and the next thing you know, the hour you've allowed yourself for creative expression is all chewed up. The baby's awake and crying, and you still haven't even started. It's a frustrating place to be, someone on the cusp of doing what they want, but never quite crossing that threshold. This used to be me, and I power through these days like drudging a boulder through a swamp. But I trudge through that gosh darn swamp. You're almost there, and with a few easy to deploy methods, you'll be making great use of your time just like the happy little creator I am. In the time it takes me to beat the pants off this gold-ranked team in Rivals, I will have explained to you a few methods that I use to keep me on track and productive, in my free time and in my profession. Let's rewind back to 2020. I just published my first novel, The Expedition of Hope. Thanks to my ability to control and reduce my consumption, that book was now out in the world, and I got to take all the congratulations that followed. But I wanted to write another book. I wasn't sure when I was wrapping up the first book if I'd ever throw myself into this pinball machine of life that publishing a novel really is. But right after releasing the first, I was ready for the second. That motivation, that high, only carried me for a few months at best. I was maybe 3 chapters into my new project when the excitement was already worn down. Like some dusty old marriage when you reach the point about putting ads in the paper for drinking pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. Now, it's nice to be excited about a new project. It's even important to get excited about a new project. But it's even more important to understand that the excitement won't last. It's not something that I understood at the time. After the love all died for this new book, I simply stopped writing it. Dreadful, right? I'd just gone through the process of publishing one book. I was all hype up on the idea of becoming a writer, only to quit as soon as things got boring. And it's not so much as though things were getting boring, as much as they were just kind of mundane or normal. Like when actors or musicians describe their work as just that, work. You do something often enough and it's doomed to mediocrity. It's how something as exciting and as revered as acting in a TV show can be dull and unexciting to the person who's been doing it for the past 6 years. For me, writing was no different. And for you, and whatever your creative thing is, you'll feel this too. Again, it's important to be excited about the project, and you will be excited at key moments, but true success comes from those who can persevere through the dull, less exciting, pina colada-inducing moments. I'd given my second book 3 months of writing, and now I'd landed 3 months without even touching it. Now I was kicking myself for not having touched the thing. I had plenty of time and no reason not to, but the motivation just wasn't there. But despite it all, I was still sitting there beating myself up over not having touched the thing in months. What a fickle mind of mine. It doesn't feel like doing things, but then it fills me with guilt for not doing the things it didn't feel like doing. The mind's a pretty stupid and frustrating thing if you ask me, or maybe it's just me and my mind. Drop me a comment and let me know how your mind treats you. Is your mind as cruel as mine? Anyway, I decide I'm gonna get off my butt and write the dang thing. In an effort to rekindle my excitement for this book, I decided to start telling people about it. Talking about it, putting it out there into the world, and getting other people excited about it as well. And getting other people excited about it is bound to boost my excitement as well. So, that's what I did. I talked it up any chance I got, consistently wrote on it, and really just started plowing through the dang thing. I was halfway through it and just going right through it in months. The excitement was back, and I was consistently writing my little fingers off. The first draft was done and I submitted it to an editor. I stopped talking up my project, as I no longer needed to hype myself up for it. It was being edited, and I could wipe my hands of that project for a while. The rest of 2020 had happened, and I worked my way through the editing, cover design, and whatnot else on that book, and it was ready for release by the end of that year. Things were really coming together. 2 books in, and I knew that I had this whole writing thing down. I'd released that book at the beginning of 2021, and all was great. Except for it wasn't. Nothing was great. No one seemed to care about that book at all. I'd spent all this time building excitement for it, and there was literally no excitement to be had within my audience. That's when it dawned on me. The only person's excitement that I had built for that book was my own. Worse yet was the realization of how I'd annoyed all my buddies by never shutting up about the book that none of them really cared about. bless their little hearts. But this new strategy, the strategy that was surefire for me, had backfired, and backfired in a devastating way. I had developed this strategy as a means to motivate myself to write my next book, but to release that book only to realize that I was possibly the only one excited for it, except for my mom, of course. She's excited for everything that I do. But coming to that realization was a more devastating hit to my creative output than anything else. Even today, 4 years later after realizing this mistake, and 4 more books down the way, I struggle with the realization of how few of people get excited about or even care about what I'm up to. My motivation for writing anything else was completely deflated, and any hopes or determinations I had of doing anything else was gonzo. I tried to pick up other creative projects, music, cartoons, editing popular songs so that they're safe for work, you name it, and I probably at least thought about doing it. I found myself again, stuck in that same rut that you're in. I had time to do the things that I wanted to do, but without any motivation or clear direction, I floundered around for hours. Half starting one thing, adding a few seconds worth of progress to a couple of other things, scrolling through Instagram, YouTube, and spending a whole bunch of time thinking about what I'd do, and the many things that I could do. After releasing my first novel, while still riding the high of my fresh new first-time publication, I had decided that I was going to release a new book every year. And here I was 2 years in, 2021, and I'd done well enough so. But it was this eventual downward spiral that had caused me to miss a year in this goal. And that all comes down to failing to make a few key observations earlier on in the process. A few key observations that had turned my creativity into the hot rod of writing, just drifting and dashing through all the words on the page. Late 2021, and I wake up from a particularly vivid dream. It's 3 a.m. and there's just some details from that dream that I simply have to commit to paper. The motivation was back. The excitement was electrifying my veins. What preceded that morning was a 9-day writing stretch, the likes of which I'll probably spend the rest of my life chasing. Dusty Little Wastelanders was this project, and with this project I discovered the power of motivation, excitement, clear inspiration, and the flow state. With all that, I had written my first manuscript, 70,000 some odd words, in only 9 days' time. Something that still to this day usually takes me around 9 months, was now done in 9 days. I don't even want to do the math to figure out how much faster that is than usual, but I think it's important to understand that it's insane. Unfortunately, it was just another project to tank my ability to keep writing and get excited about things and creative projects. There is no way I'd be replicating that level of production, but still my mind craved to be able to replicate it. And between the realization that I never would match or top that, and the assumption that that's what it would take to become a creative writing demon, the drive died all over again. My creative aspirations dried up, and I was once again where we find ourselves. Time enough, without motivation, no feelings, and not doing things in the valuable amount of time that I'd allowed for myself to do these things. I'd still managed to control my consumption amid all this, which had become some sort of Christmas miracle. But I remained comfortable with that, and I didn't backslide there. But I needed to figure out this whole consistency thing. How could I continue to crank out my own work? Worse yet were the thoughts of whether or not I even wanted to continue with my own creative work. Things were really getting dark once those thoughts started to creep in. I still managed to force something out at the top of 2022, but that was mostly because I had written the sequel to the first Healer's book whilst writing the first Healer's book, so most of the work was already done there. Even still, as I'd mentioned before, it was forced, like making myself sit through a Mr. Beast video. This continued feeling of loss, no motivation, and unproductive time haunted me well into 2023, and is what caused me to miss my release that year. And, as it's typical of my particularly cruel mind, I was now kicking myself for having missed a release. And it's that hypocritical self-attacking that tends to force me into action. I guess I should thank my cruel mind master for that one. But ultimately, it led me to look in at what I had been doing. I'd look back at the 4 books that I'd published thus far, see what I'd done, how I'd done it, and what was working. The whole excitement thing didn't work, and trying to replicate the perfect storm that I'd had with Dusty Little Wastelanders was about as doable as picking up Thor's hammer. But there was something that I had done each of those times. Something doable and seemingly obvious that I'm embarrassed to announce it had taken me 3 years and 4 books to figure out for myself. There was one consistent factor among these 4 books that remained. Despite the excitement of my first book, the forced excitement of book 2, and the flow state high of book 3, the one other thing that remained consistent was my consistency. For each of those projects, even the dreaded and forced 4th book, I'd been consistent. Consistent through the excitement of the book, consistent through the forced excitement of the 2nd book, consistent with the 9-day stretch of book 3, and consistent with the eyelid-ripping torture that was book 4. Whenever I had a project going that I considered myself to be actively working on, I put my fingers to the keys on said project for at least an hour a day. Sometimes longer if I was in a particular place of excitement or still riding my flow state, but never any less than an hour. I came to discover that consistency really is key, and I know that's pretty common advice, but to realize it is a whole nother thing. No matter the gimmick that I'm writing, consistency is what keeps my work going. If you're able to find the time to do the thing, then just make it a part of your schedule. That's what I did and what continues to work with me today. I make myself write for at least an hour a day. It means that I'm consistently working on something and consistently able to put out new work. I use my story on how I fell into my writing habits as an example of the impacts of maintaining a healthy and consistent schedule. But that's mostly because writing is my personal creative outlet. I feel you'll be able to find that this is multifaceted advice that can be applied to most any hobby that you're struggling to apply yourself to, even when the times and opportunities present themselves. Is making movies your thing? Devote an hour a day to that thing, whether that be filming scenes, writing the script, or editing the thing. An hour a day will get you there. Is music more your thing? Then record an hour a day, compose the music, master your edit. Always be doing something for an hour a day towards your creative goal. Perhaps you make origami cats for your cousin who lives in the psych ward. Then spend an hour folding papers. Maybe spend some time buying the paper you fold, but definitely spend an hour researching different folding techniques, as you don't want to bore your psycho cousin with bland, uninspired paper cats and become his next slice victim. All joking aside, I think that if you apply yourself, you can find something to do for an hour to push through your goals. And again, consistency is where it's at. Eventually, it will just become habit, and then you reach the golden space where you're just creating consistently the thing that it is you wish to create. And again, this methodology can be applied to more professional works as well. If you're struggling in finding that hour a day to commit to a consistent creative schedule, then I advise that you check out my video on consumption. I bet you do have an hour in your day if you look hard enough, and this video will turn you into some kind of time sleuth, finding all sorts of free and/or wasted time to newly occupy with your passions. My books are all available on Amazon. Links are in the bio. If you were to check them out, I'd be forever grateful. I suggest starting with Dusty Little Wastelanders, or anything published after that, as those feature my strongest writing yet. If you're still struggling with finding time in your day or general consumption, then click the suggested video, as it'll be a good way to remedy that mess. And now go out there and start some changes, bud.